Hello, everyone. Welcome to Coffee Break. My name's Steve Barrett. I'm the editorial director at PR Week, here with another show, and really delighted to welcome Jonathan Jordan to the show. Jonathan is the newly appointed GM for LA for Edelman, and best known as JJ, I think. So I'm going to call you JJ. JJ, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steve. So glad to be with you, and you can absolutely call me JJ. But I also respond to pretty much anything. Hey, you. Hey, yo.
Yeah, that's the world we're living in at the moment, isn't it? So congrats on the new role. Just talk us through it. You are the first black man, I believe, to run an Edelman office. So maybe that's long overdue, and we can get into that. But congratulations.
I appreciate it. I'm really excited about the role. I've been in Edelman going on right around 4 years, and I feel like it's been the culmination of my background has really led to this role, and really excited about it. Certainly, it's history making. So I'm happy to be the first, and obviously won't be the last black man to be a GM at Edelman. But we are really in a great time where there are a lot of folks that are looking at the industries and asking super important questions around representation, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later. But excited about the role and excited to get going here. Got a lot of ideas and an amazing team we have here in LA. So
tell us a bit about the business in LA. Is it very revolving around the entertainment and music industries, or have you got other big name clients as well?
Yeah, we've got a ton of massive accounts that are ran really globally, but a large percentage of the team supporting them do sit in LA. We have some really great media and entertainment clients. But also, I think what's really cool is when you look at our specialties, our creative team is really amazing. Folks are really surprised when they think about Edelman because of our heritage and public relations. But we have built, an award-winning creative team here locally in LA, and we've been recognized. And in some ways, we are a hub for really great creative as well.
Yeah, it's well documented that Edelman's invested heavily in that. 500 or 600 people. You've got Judy John, fantastic creative, leading your whole team there. So that work. So you're probably bidding against creative agencies, ad agencies, digital agencies for work.
That's absolutely right. And what's really cool is the diversity of the type of agencies we compete against. What's also interesting is from a corporate advisory perspective, and I kind of come from that world where half of my background was in management consulting. We're also competing with some really big consulting agencies and consulting companies. And we've got a pretty great track record beating some of the top ones. I won't drop any names, but they're noticing. And it's also, it's great to see their face, not only when they see that we're competing with them, but when we're beating them. It's a great feeling.
Yeah, for sure. I think most of the big firms have got significant arms, corporate arms and consulting arms, and are definitely winning business. And especially in the last 12 months, I would imagine you've seen a bit of an upswing in the need for that kind of senior counsel.
Yeah, 100% between COVID, between Black Lives Matter, between the election. We've been really busy. Last year was the busiest year I think I've ever seen. And I think a lot of my colleagues would probably say this is the busiest they've ever been, which is a great problem to have.
Yeah, it is. So let's talk about the black representation in the creative worlds. We saw the Super Bowl a couple of weeks ago where there were 87 ads made or films, and there were only 3 women, which is shocking, directing those films. And I think there were 5 people of color, of which I think 3 were black men. That's really quite a shocking lack of representation, especially in a year like after the last 12 months, where diversity has been such a top of mind issue in society, but in the creative industries especially. And when you looked at the issues around the NFL and the players are very diverse. So how can we improve that? Why is it so poor?
Well, like a year like we had last year, what's really it was unfortunate. But these themes and the conversations we've been having, it's been around for a long time. I think, obviously, when you see certain things on video, it really, grips you. And so the conversation has really taken a hold. To be honest, I'm not really surprised. I mean, there's a general lack of representation across many industries. and specifically in the communications, marketing, and advertising world. It's been a theme for a long time. If I back up too, I think what's really a question that has been top of mind for me, Steve, is why aren't there more Black men in communications? And so when I think about the arts and when I think about some of the greatest speeches written or delivered, they've been delivered and written by Black men. And when you think about, I come from the music world as well. I worked in the music business. And so some of the best songwriters and both some of the best communicators through music have been Black men. And when you lastly think about storytelling and comedy, and you think about telling stories, some of the best storytellers in the world have been Black men. And so it gives me pause to think about why there aren't more Black men in the communications field. My guess are two things, and one of them I think is education. So I think, if I were to go back to some of the songwriters that I still keep in touch with, and said, hey, did you know you could be paid? You could actually have a really great career writing on behalf of brands and companies and get paid pretty well to do that as a copywriter or just a communications practitioner. I think they would probably think twice about, what is this whole agency world you talk about? So some of this is education. And I think about my undergrad. My undergrad was in communications, and there weren't a lot of me, male or female, or people of color in general. And so it definitely, I think there's an education and awareness piece. So I'm excited to drive this conversation with me being placed in this role. The second thing I think is allyship, but also even further than that is sponsorship. And I am so thankful. I have an amazing sponsor here at Edelman that has really been just an awesome person. But who is that person that's in the room when these discussions are happening about top talent that can vouch for this, this person? And having that advocate, having that sponsor, being in position is huge. Now, there aren't a lot of formal sponsorship programs, and so I think it's become incumbent on junior people of color to find those sponsors and advocates. But this begs the question: should we think more proactively around sponsorship and advocacy? My answer would be yes, absolutely.
Yeah. How do you think we're doing in the communications industry? Because I do think you're right that there's still a lack of knowledge about what the PR profession does, and it's how exciting it is and what a brilliant place it is to work and how creative you can be. And, it's not just selling press releases and, getting on the phone to media outlets. There's so much more to it these days. So how are we doing, and how can we do better at attracting more creative people in because we're missing out on such a great swathe of talent. You said it.
Yeah.
Some of the most, Black music is modern culture. If you think about it, we are missing out on a whole generation of talent.
Yeah. I think it's, again, going back to education and think about the pipeline where we're recruiting from. And when you look at resumes, are there the standard things that everyone looks for in order for them to make it in? And so we need to think a little bit more creatively about how we look at resumes. But the awareness piece is huge. And I also think case studies and talking about what a day in the life looks like. We hear PR, we think about marketing, and we talk about advertising, but what does that actually look like? And what are all the many possible fields that someone can go into? You mentioned earlier how there wasn't a lot of representation from directors for advertising for the Super Bowl. And you think about sports in general, there's a lot of Black folks out there on the field. But when you think about sports, what are some of the other roles that we could look at? How can we be in the back office? There's a million other roles that we don't necessarily talk about. We talk about only a small percentage of them. So I think a part of this is having the conversation, driving awareness, but also instituting processes that enhance representation across the board. Yeah,
no, we've got to do better. Do you think things have changed since last summer? I mean, there was a lot of talk about brands, coming out and saying things, putting a statement on social, but people were saying, look, yeah, that's fine, but we've got to do a lot more. We've got to take actions. And we have seen actions on our sister title campaign and on PR. We have been tracking a lot of appointments that not just in the diversity part of organizations, but actually chief creative officers, and appointments like your own. In business generally, NASDAQ has made that statement about Boards have got to meet certain diversity measures. Otherwise, they're just not going to be able to list on NASDAQ. Some of those things feel like real changes that are going to have to be met and that are going to lead to more diversity.
100%. I mean, everyone's in a different part of their journey, but on the whole, I'm really excited to see what's happening. We have the benefit of working with massive, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies, and for the most part, folks are not just putting their words out there; they're putting their dollars and investment there. So that is encouraging. I think as we look to our industry, I would, echo. I might get this wrong, but if a lot of folks are saying something to the effect of, if the only Black person you have in leadership is in a diversity and inclusion role, you don't get it, right? And so I am encouraged by some movement to have representation outside of that role. But also in addition to that, I'm seeing a lot of agencies prioritize that and invest in the space. So it's a good day. Progress is happening. It's not perfect. It's going to take a while. And I think I would encourage everyone to think of it as a journey. And all of our, many different companies are at different parts of their journey.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to seeing what you're going to do, JJ. So let's pivot to that, the GM role at the biggest agency in the world. What does a GM do these days? Because that role has evolved a lot as well, and the type of things that you're expected to do, and no doubt Richard Edelman has given you some good targets to hit. Talk us through how you're going to approach that.
We've got a lot of ideas up our sleeves. I won't give it all away, but what I'll say is we ourselves, Edelman, have been on a journey in transforming how we operate. And some of the decisions that we're now moving into, I'm incredibly encouraged by. Some of those moves and the changes that are happening to our operating model are very similar to the world that I came from in consulting. And it absolutely unlocks growth. And so the GM role has shifted a little bit where, it's less of the sort of franchise model, but it's much more collaborative. And it's also making sure that we look after our backyard and making sure that, from a brand perspective, folks are aware and, we have deep connections in the community. But secondly, making sure culture is cultivated and enhanced. And so that's a large part of my role. And I'm really excited about it. I've got a lot of ideas. So you'll hear about it at some point in the headlines.
Sounds good. And tell us a bit about the West Coast market. And obviously LA is a very distinct market, but you've got the technology businesses in Silicon Valley. You've got all the music and entertainment businesses. We've been hanging around on Clubhouse a lot recently. Do you see that as it's a very diverse place, and very young and vibrant and creative. I mean, I'm sure it'll get, like all social channels, it'll probably become toxic eventually, but it feels like a kind of a nice place to hang out. What are you seeing as trends in terms of platforms and channels and communication? Yeah,
I mean, obviously with the explosion of audio mediums, so podcasting has blown up. But the Clubhouse, I joined, September or whenever it was invite only. And, the first couple of times I hopped on myself, I was like, what is this? This is so weird, so different. It's like talking to friends on the phone, but there's like 60 of us. Yeah. I think it's an interesting medium, and I'm excited to see what happens with the channel. Not sure, Steve, if you made it when Elon was up there. It was so interesting. His room filled up, and then folks that were in the room started to, just basically to others.
And he said, "Oh, can I bring my friend on stage, Vlad, the CEO of Robinhood?" Yeah, you can. Yeah, it's like the biggest name in the news at the moment. It became a news event, didn't it? Yeah, he did. It's a great experience, and I think I'm encouraged by some of the ideas that I'm seeing from brands about how to utilize that channel. So it's gonna continue to be vital for a lot of our clients. Yeah, and we'll see Twitter Spaces, Facebook's going to do its own Me Too, and then there are other independent audio channels. So that is an interesting trend and lots of things going on. Do join the PR Week show, the Marcoms show, which we run at 7 Eastern on Mondays. Every week we do a different topic, so everybody should join that if they can. But listen, JJ, we really wish you well in the role. Congratulations. Thanks for coming on Coffee Break to chat about it, and really looking forward to seeing you put those plans in progress. Well, Steve, I really appreciate you for having me on, and I really love this the chats that you're having. They're really enjoyable. So good luck with you. Thanks so much. Take care. All right, take care.